Okay, so welcome everybody to our next episode of The Value Prop, brought to you by the Pacific Basin Economic Council. And my name is Michael Walsh, as always, and I am delighted to be bringing back what kicked off as our co-host last year when we started all of this venture together, Luis Miguel Aboitiz from Aboitiz Power Corporation and Aboitiz Group, a large conglomerate based out of the Philippines, which has multiple interests, which we'll get into in a second. I'm excited for him to be joining us all the way from California, where he's managed to escape the Asian lockdowns and is now in the US doing some obviously business, and obviously hopefully he gets a chance not to sort of get out and about in California as well, and maybe to the wine country. We'll find out later from that. But first of all, just to give you a little bit of background on Miguel, he previously served as the Director of Unionbank and as an Executive Vice President, Chief Strategy Officer of Aboitiz Group before his retirement in April in 2020. He was also the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer and Corporate Business Group of Aboitiz Power from 2016 to 2018, and the Senior Vice President of Power Marketing and Trading from 2009 to 2015. And Miguel is now currently a Director, again, of Aboitiz Power Corporation, a Director of ACO, and a member of its Board Strategy and Succession and Compensation Committee. He also serves as a Director of DDLS, Aboitiz Inc., and Trustee of the Philippine Business for Social Progress, which we'll talk about as well a little bit later. And Miguel graduated from Santa Clara University, California, with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Engineering, and earned his master's degree in Business Administration from the University of California in Berkeley. He's not a director of any other public listed companies at the moment, but he's also not connected with any government agency or instrumentality, which I think is an important thing to note these days for our listeners. But we're going to go into and kick off, Miguel, if you don't mind, is some really positive news coming out at the end of last year, where it was announced that Jericho Inc., a Japanese large conglomerate, acquired 27% stake in Aboitiz Power, marking a new phase in the company's energy mix development to hopefully reach 50-50 thermal versus renewables by 2030. So I just thought it'd be nice if you could share what this new venture together means for the group, and how excited you are personally, and where you see the opportunities moving forward together. So Miguel, welcome to the podcast once again, and lovely to hear your views.
This episode was supported by Make It Happen in the Philippines, the ideal investment destination. Located within one of the world's fastest growing economies, the Philippines is an ideal investment destination, offering businesses unique access to a large consumer market and excellent trade options both within Asia and beyond. Our business-friendly laws attract international companies into the Philippines, and with a government committed to creating a business-friendly landscape, there has never been a better time to make it happen in the Philippines.
Thank you. The JERA acquisition of Aboitiz Power at 27% achieves several things. One, our conglomerate is very weighted toward power, and we wanted a more balanced diversification within the conglomerate. So that's one of the reasons why we sold down Aboitiz Power. The second reason is that, we're building coal plants, but we're not building any more coal plants. So it looks like the next plants that come out will either be gas, renewable, or batteries, or any combination thereof. And so JERA is one of the biggest traders in Japan of LNG. If you build a gas plant in the Philippines, you almost necessarily have to build an LNG fueled power plant, because the only pipeline gas we have comes from Malampaya, and that's almost at the end of its life. And so we think JERA is a fantastic partner to go toward this. And if we can build a business with their help and their partnership, it'd be great. The third thing is that, also selling down the power business gives AEV more capital to diversify and expand throughout Asia.
And on that point, just to sort of keep it on the energy capacity side, obviously for any country, it's so important to have a stable grid supply, especially for the manufacturing side. And we talked just before we came on air, and that, this increase in energy requirement and mix, it serves well for the industrial locators and further development, that you're starting to see a lot of interest again as borders reopen. How do you think, the industrial parks will sort of continue to support and attract people like Japanese firms, other than just JERA? There's a lot of what you mentioned, light manufacturing firms interested in coming to Philippines. There's many already there. Do you see the opportunities to for them to locate to the Philippines now with this additional power coming on, and to serve what is becoming very relevant with what's going on in China, to serve the ASEAN market, and the importance of like the RCEP trade agreement that's come into force in January? Would you like to share any of your thoughts there?
Yes, we've seen a lot of interest in locators who want to locate and build factories in the Philippines. We ourselves have an industrial zone called DUMA Land, and because of that interest and demand, we're actually expanding the zone to cover more area so that we can attract even more locators and have a bigger base of which we can build facilities that serve everybody within the zone. And so there's a lot of interest, and I think when all these restrictions are over, I think people will be flying over and establishing their factories and their new expansions all over the place, the Philippines.
So some of the challenges that a lot of the countries are facing, even here in Hong Kong, where I'm based, is a lack of available resources due to the prolonged border restrictions and quarantine restrictions. So there's been a bit of a lack of labor mobility per se in the region for, I guess, ready-made skill sets. But obviously we spoke a little bit about, the Philippine qualities, English speaking, etc. How do you see, the Aboitiz Group in its wider plans outside of energy, perhaps, in tackling some of these challenges in the labor area, but also in innovation and technology?
Well, we have a lot of a very young population, and they're educated, but their skills may not be specific to the electronic sector. I have seen some schools where the people are college students are trained on how to do electronics assembly, etc. In fact, one of my friends has a school that does that trains them, and so there is a base from which people who build factories can employ people, because there's so many light manufacturers here that do electronic assembly, that there now are businesses that train people to be employed into those businesses. So I don't think that is a problem.
And just sort of looking at coming to sort of some of the trends and operational risks that you may have witnessed over the last year, and also as the Philippine economy starts to reopen in an election year, what are some of those that you're seeing and hearing about, now that things are starting to open up again?
Well, about 2 years ago, one of our biggest industries was called POGO, Philippine Online Gaming Operation. And these are proxy gambling facilities in the Philippines that allowed Chinese from China to gamble remotely from China, because gambling is not allowed in China. And so what happened just before the pandemic was that the Department of Finance clashed with these businesses, and they said that you're not paying the right taxes, or you're not paying any taxes at all. So they had a compromise, and they came out with one set of clear taxes that everybody would be charged. And this made some of them leave the country. Then COVID happened, so a lot of them stopped their operations. The question is, will they come back? And the reason it's a very big question is that they represent somewhere between 10 to 15% of the rental business in the Philippines for both residential and office space. And so they're a big factor in the real estate industry.
No, that's very big. That's quite a substantial risk in some ways that could happen, depending on how it pans out. As you say, you mentioned before to me that China has the tools to to stop this. At the moment, they haven't necessarily moved to do that just because the border restrictions was already preventing activity during COVID so much. But it'll be interesting because obviously there's different parties' interest there. Obviously with some Macau interest in the Philippines as well in terms of the infrastructure there. That was big investments done not that long ago.
That's right.
To have to relocate just because of tax regulations would be a big hit on that whole group's strategies. So from that, Miguel, obviously an area that you're really interested in from what we've spoken about before is around technology. Obviously you've left your role at the Unionbank, but you were the chairman. I don't know if you still are the chairman at the Technology Steering Committee. Is there anything on the banking side that you're seeing, not necessarily at Unionbank, but just in the sector that is exciting you, that maybe have been accelerated due to COVID?
Well, one of these things that's been moving quite fast and very popular among the young people is cryptocurrency. And so there have been a lot of providers that provide cryptocurrency exchanges or conduits between fiat currency and cryptocurrency in the Philippines. And one recent one yesterday, it was announced in the news that they received $50 million of funding from Tiger Global VC and a few others, one of them including a subsidiary of Unionbank. So that is quite an exciting sector in the Philippines and actually around the world. And somebody today I talked to, and I don't know if the figure is correct, but somebody told me that all the investment in cryptocurrency just about matches all the investment into gold around the world. So you can see, the gold being the older generation and the cryptocurrency being the younger generation have a different taste in investment.
Yeah, that is an interesting trend and way to look at it. Yeah, and because some people have said the Bitcoin itself is a potential to be an alternative to gold, and then the Ethereum and the other currencies on top are literally the mechanisms to trade. So I don't know if that's necessarily a true statement, but time will tell, I guess. But as you say, we at PBEC as well, we have a few members in that sector. From derivative exchanges in the crypto side to the actual currencies themselves, who are doing and the conduits to that, as you mentioned before. These companies that are facilitating the transactions are going to see. That's why you're seeing the big move by all the banks, in particular in central banks, to addressing digital currency of the fiat currencies. So I think China is going to be one of the first movers on that. After the Winter Olympics is out the way, we'll probably see more announcements around the digital currency of the RMB, which I think Hong Kong is hoping to get a piece of the pie of that, because they've already been a clearinghouse for RMB for the last 3 to 4 years, and I think they would hope that that will just increase the volumes further to help Hong Kong recover from this current Omicron variant outbreak in the coming months ahead. So just moving, I want to shift gears a little bit, Miguel, with you, because obviously you wear multiple hats in your organization, and I think an interesting area which comes back to what we spoke about before and some of the challenges to address skill sets is your role as director at DDLS, which obviously is a joint venture with Adventure company, I believe from Australia, and Aboitiz
right.
Impact Ventures, which is obviously the arm of Aboitiz that is investing in this.
That's right.
So what are you seeing early demand and successes witnessed from that venture together? And could you share more about the initiative going forward? Do you have some further strategic plans to grow that business in the Philippines?
Yeah, so what DDLS does is it trains people for certified courses for a specific type of software or specific type of services. Two of the most common training sessions are really Amazon Web Services and Azure from Microsoft. And so when people are shifting between their physical servers in their premises and they're buying new generation software, usually the shift is that they'll buy the software that's on the cloud, but in order to manage the cloud, they have to train their IT people from learning how to manage disks and hardware inside their facilities to learning how to manage and secure cloud-based disk facilities and communication facilities, and then load that software onto that facility. So they get their SAPs, they get their Oracles, etc., and they load it onto that. So basically, we provide the courses that allow the IT staff to transition between that. And so those are the two most popular courses that we have.
And I mean, obviously, it's an area that's just going to continue to grow as employers require those skill sets.
Well, also what has happened is because Philippines is English speaking, our classes are in English. We're actually doing some remote classes in places in Asia that either don't have classes or don't have English speaking classes, or countries that are not as developed or are remote and have to train their people but couldn't physically deliver them elsewhere. So they would be given online classes and on tests from DDLS.
Fantastic. So and as we sort of come to towards the end part of this discussion now, I think it's really important, especially because of COVID, you've seen and read about, in some ways, the responsibility shift from a society point of view from, employers, especially larger companies. There's like an increased expectation in some ways to have to be more involved in social enterprises and sort of purpose-driven initiatives that include the local community and the wider sort of environmental impact side as well, just by, the COP latest meeting last year in Glasgow. So there's a bit of a momentum building, but obviously, a company like Aboitiz has been doing this for years already, giving back to society and developing, and both physically developing, like improving roads, parks for the local communities to enjoy, leisure parks and everything like that. But I thought it would be interesting for you to have a chance to just talk about PBSP, the Philippine Business for Social Progress, and some of the great work they're doing there as you're a trustee. I looked at recently, they did a bit of a virtual talk because they couldn't meet physically, the future of doing good. And some really key areas come up that, are common themes, not just in the Philippines, but across the region, due to the COVID COVID issue. So just wanted, if you wanted to share one or two things, maybe give a little bit about what the background of that organization does, and how you got involved, and what the good stuff is coming from that.
Yeah, so Philippine Business for Social Progress is an organization composed of a lot of the largest businesses in the Philippines, where everybody got together under the leadership of Manny Pangilinan of Metro Pacific Group, and basically everybody agreed to contribute a percentage of their earnings to PBSP to do social good in the Philippines. And there are a lot of initiatives that they have. Sometimes they partner with foreign contributors to combat, for example, malaria or dengue or other things in the Philippines, other problems in the Philippines. Most recently, whenever there is a typhoon or some type of a disaster, it comes out and starts arranging for logistical help and arranging to channel donations to those areas. So PBSB is like it's like everybody in the industry getting together and say, let's do something together, let's do some good for the country. And so that's been going on for many years. And Aboitiz was a member from the very beginning. And so that's how I got to be on the board, because Aboitiz appointed me to be on the board of PBSP.
I said that's a great example of what could, of sharing, if you like, a structure that could work well in other countries in the region. I don't see that structure in other ASEAN countries so much. Maybe there are some contributions done by the private sector, but not in that sort of structural, organized way. which I think centralized from a business perspective, which could be mirrored, if you like, especially with the increased environmental risks coming from the carbon increase that are going to continue through 2030, even though there's all these initiatives to reduce carbon. China is only going to level off past 2030, so it's going to only increase for the next decade before it starts.
Right.
And we don't know if it's going to come down fast enough. So there's going to be more extreme weather events, I'm sure, in the region. And it's always, I feel sorry sometimes for the Philippines. They always seem to be in the path of most storms coming from.
Well, I think Philippines is the crossroad of typhoons and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
So
we're
never
right
boring.
in the middle of them all. Never boring.
So so with that, I would just like to conclude, as we always have done before, Miguel, as you know, is would you like to share one or two of your predictions for the year coming? We just entered the year of the tiger. Happy year of the tiger to you, Miguel. I hope it's a good one for you. But anything you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, my bold prediction is that by June, everybody is going to look for accumulated vacation somewhere nearby. And by December, all our logistics problems will be solved, or things will now no longer be as backlogged. Shipping containers will be back to their normal price. Right now, that's 4 times what it used to be. And 2023 is the first full year of normalcy, full recovery.
Well, you heard it here first, people, from Miguel. So thank you, Miguel. Are you going to have a chance to go down to the wine country at all? You're in San Francisco.
I don't know. I used to study near San Francisco, and drinking the best wine is better done in the city than in the wine country, because it's pretty far between wineries, and the wines that you get in the wineries are limited to a few, whereas the wine bars in San Francisco are really the place to go.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, unless you have a helicopter, from my aviation background, then you can hop around very easily.
I don't think they will let you. I think you need a permit to land in certain areas. You would know better than me, but I think you need permits.
We can get it done for Aboitiz. No problem at all. Yeah. So anyway, look, Miguel, thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave it there, folks, and thanks for joining. Till next time, take care, be safe, be well.
Stay safe.
The Value Prop Show is brought to you by PBEC, the Pacific Basin Economic Council. Your co-hosts are Miguel Aboitiz and Michael Walsh from PBEC. Subscribe on our LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Thanks for watching and listening, and see you in the next episode.